Honda Civic Si, it's been a few years.
This is an old friend, huh?
This is an old friend. We really like the current gen Honda Civic. We also like this generation of the Mazda 3, so we thought, let's put them together because we haven't done that.
The last time we drove the Civic Si in its 11th generation was 2022, right when it was first introduced.
Yeah.
And that car was $28,910 on the Monroney. Nothing has changed, and here we are at $31,800 for the 2025 version, and it's still a bargain compared to the Elantra N and the Golf GTI. We're comparing this against the Mazda because even though the Mazda has more power, it's as sporty as it gets.
Prices are similar, and in both cases, there is a way to step up to the full motorsports version. Honda makes it, Mazda doesn't.
Right.
Honda makes the Type R, which we love. Mazda does not currently make a Mazda Speed 3, but we're talking about small, 4-seat, 4-door hatches and sedans. What's interesting is these are almost to the inch the same length and wheelbase. They are fractions of an inch off of both. They are essentially the same size car.
Great cars, great roads, and all the reasons we love to drive. Road trips, comparisons, test drives, and podcasts. This is Everyday Driver.
Great visibility in this, which is something that the Mazda 3 will talk about when we're driving that one. One of the biggest things I want to discuss, though... Oh, hey, Rev Match is on.
Hey.
Okay, Rev Match is fine. Sorry, distracted by Rev Match. Rev Match is fine.
The access to Rev
But
Match.
here's the thing. If you don't want it, that is one of my issues with this Honda Civic Si. If you want to turn it off, there is no button. You have to come to a stop so that the screen here will allow you to bring up vehicle settings. Vehicle settings cannot be brought up while you're driving, and while I understand the logic there, there's settings in there you may want to change on the fly. The key one being Rev Match, which you can turn off, but only if I come to a complete stop. Also lane departure, which is quite aggressive in this car until you just beat it into submission and say, please stop.
Yes.
That also cannot be changed on the fly. So if you hop into a Honda Civic Si and you think, oh, I'm moving now and that I hate the lane departure and I want to turn off Rev Match, you better have a long stop light, because otherwise it's not happening.
There's plenty of places to put buttons for the most key features.
Yes, there are.
Rev Match is like the most key of them all.
Especially for driving features. Let's make that happen. This does feel like it's focused to be a little more driver-centric than a lot of other people make cars. Just in general, the Civic just in general feels that way. So let's make driver-centric buttons available. I'm going to use all 190 horsepower. Here we go.
Well, this is 200 horsepower,
200 horsepower,
190 pound-feet of torque out of a 1.5 turbo 4-cylinder. That is unchanged. You know what? At that rev range, it sounds kind of sporty. At 5,000 RPM, it sounds all right.
And it has okay power.
This.
You're not going to wow yourself, but you are going to be in a situation, Rev Match was nice there, you are going to be in a situation where you're going to have enough power to pass and do things. You're never going to have enough power to be like, wow, this is powerful. It doesn't do that.
It's not the hot sports car. It's not the Type R. With the Type R, you can do that. But that's okay because you're saving money. And this still is such a nice balance. Enthusiast, but useful. Even though this still only comes with a 6-speed manual. Automatic transmission is not even offered. If you want that, you can go to the lower end. You can go the new Civic Hybrid, which is excellent. Same amount of power. But you know what?
I forgot to say the HPT.
Well,
this is HPT,
That's the ticket. That's the difference. High-performance tires out of the Goodyear Eagle F1 asymmetric 2s that I've never found to be amazing, but you know what? On a car that you're not tracking and it's not going to overwhelm the tires, they're going to be fine.
The key thing here is this is a summer performance tire, and they put it all over the Monroney. Tell us in the comments, you may think of another one. I can't think of another car being sold where the tire is in the title of the car on the Monroney.
No, I can't really either.
HPT, yo.
All right, so the styling, of course, is unchanged except for the front and rear clips. The styling updates are so lightweight, they're nearly unnoticeable. But the interior is where it still absolutely shines.
Okay.
It's simple, it's clean, it's aged very well.
It has.
The joysticks for the AC vents
They are really cool.
the best ever. They're just the best. You understand them. What that's done for the center vent stack here, or just this strip, that honeycomb kind of integrates. You don't really see each individual vent. You see a nice styling theme, a good amount of buttons, even though we need one more For rev match, right down here.
Yes, rev match for sure. And
Anywhere.
probably lane keep assist, kill that as well.
Lane keep assist, yeah.
Both of those should be killable with a button. I really like this interior, but the biggest difference is where we're going to find between this and the Mazda is actually an interior. But everything about this feels like, and I don't mean this as a slight, this feels more like a car from the 90s. This seat I'm in, yes, it's heated, but it is 100% manual. There is no motor in it anywhere. And there is obviously, as a result, no memory.
Keeps the weight down.
It keeps the weight down. This is just under 3,000 pounds, which is a victory. And that's where the simple is the benefit. But short of this screen, which I know does look like they actually just popped it on the dash.
That's because they did.
Everything else, honestly, you could jump back to 1996 with this interior and go, yeah. But the reality is the materials are nice. They don't feel cheap, but they also don't feel expensive. Everything is just done very economically, very cleanly, very simply. To your point, if you were able to fill that screen in, this would become utterly timeless. The digital gauges would be the only thing to let you know. Imagine, could you retrofit the old Honda gauges in this with the old Honda font?
That would be fun.
And then it really would be the 90s.
Maybe not. I mean, we don't need to go backwards quite so far.
I mean, look, it drives, manual transmission, it drives great, it's easy, yeah.
I mean, this is still economy car. The money went into the engine, the transmission, and slightly upgraded seats. And you know what? For the price, still at $31,000, $32,000, that's pretty good. I like this car a lot. It's got character, it's got personality for me.
I can't slight it. I'm acknowledging the fact that it's done simply and they've done it to a price point. And thankfully, the thing I love about that is it has kept the weight down. We gave you what you needed. That's all you need. You got to drive.
I can't wait.
Before you go, I almost forgot. New for 2025, this color, Urban Gray Pearl.
Urban boredom.
If you're going to introduce new colors, you're going to have to do one that's not a shade of gray. Okay? All of the press material is like, new color from Honda, and it's gray. It's gray. Now, look, I understand it's kind of leaning toward like the blue chalk feel of the Porsche world. I understand that. But at least release something other than a gray, like gray and something else. Like in addition to gray, we did a really cool yellow, or we did a really nice red.
Makes it look more mundane, and then you see the SI badge, and you think, oh, that's different. It should look different than just concrete in a stage of curing. Like,
I can't walk on that yet. Don't walk yet.
Can I write my name in that?
Don't walk
or
it.
Is that fully cured?
It's write your name stage, but not walk stage. That's where we're at. Yes.
Write your name. Okay, so I feel like this seat bottom is tilted a little bit up under the thigh bolster. I feel like that one is tilted forward. I don't like it as much.
Yeah, I think that is the better seat position.
This one feels
just
better.
Slightly. And of course, we can change things, but we can't change a ton because, of course, this is a manual seat. The difference also is that you have the ability to take that seat up and down. This one is locked in place. That's why that feels different than this one does. We're in, again,
this one
manual
is more comfortable.
seats. It is.
This one over here is slightly more ergonomic. All right, so you notice when we were parked, the parking brake automatically engages, which I am not a fan of. I want to be in control. If we're living in 1998 with a screen, I want to be in control of everything.
You want a manual lift,
I
too.
want
you want
manual everything. Let's do that. All right, so first impressions. Ooh, there's the upshift lights. I feel like Honda moved back to Rev Hang Town. They're hanging out in Rev Hang Town.
There's a lot of it.
I don't remember there being this much rev hang in the 2022 that we drove. Although it's the same engine, same everything, I don't recall this amount of rev hang, and we liked this a lot better because it had less than the 10th generation.
It had less than the prior. I think it's just because it's been a while since we were in this car.
I think
We've
that's
driven
the
others
reason.
where it's dropped. Because the reality is it's still less than the 10th gen. The 10th gen was like perpetual motion machine. You put the clutch in and it just keeps rolling. This does start to drop, but it just takes a beat longer than we would like it to.
Yeah.
So I think it's still better than the 10th.
I am enjoying and experiencing the HPT goodness right now. Y'all know what that means. Yeah, this is not a sports car, but so impressive the way it hangs on. It's the most willing and eager. That's what I loved about the Mazda. That's what we love about all these lukewarm hatches. This still feels really eager. It knows it has a bigger brother. It knows the Type R exists, and it aspires to do that. But it can't, it's not quite tuned. The suspension is quite different, but it's enthusiastic and it's fun, and that's what matters when you're buying a car like this. It's still got to be a notch above boring, concrete. What's up with that?
This may be the best commuter enthusiast car because you do get that manual transmission. Yeah. The clutch is unbelievably light. The rev match makes it like you never even have to think about what gear you're in and what the engine needs to do. That makes it a non-thinking reality. It makes it very, very simple. And you can run it on regular gas.
That's true, yeah.
And you can get it into the 30s for MPG. So it does all of the commute things while being an enthusiast car. I think that is very, very impressive. Also, this has multi-link rear suspension. And the chassis dynamics on this are superb. The handling and the way it sticks to a corner, it rarely reveals itself to be front-wheel drive. It just moves. It just does stuff.
It does. The suspension setup is soft. It's not the sports car feeling that you and I crave and want.
And not the Type R, but it doesn't need to be.
It's not the Type R. I have confidence in this car because I don't feel like the engine is going to try to crawl out of the car. When I hang out at 5,500 RPM down the hill and the rev lights are flashing madly at me, I feel like this is kind of the sweet spot where the car wants to hang out.
I mean, this is a press car. We don't have to be nice to it. There have been a few reports of a few little things about these 1.5s, but in general, this is Honda engineering. We know it's going to work.
It's just...
And they get a lot out of this little engine.
Well, okay, now all the shift lights are on.
There you go.
Fine.
Because of the rev hang, it's hard to get a normally smooth upshift because it needs so little to actually go to the upper gear. It's very funny.
This thing just wants to move, and it wriggles through corners. It doesn't dance, it doesn't float, it's not a ballerina. It kind of wriggles its way and makes an excuse here and there and figures itself out. And you know what? This is still fun to drive. I feel like you're going to be doing mostly commuting and you're going to crave more sports car because you're going to be commuting in this and think to yourself, I can squeeze through traffic and slice through here. It wants more, but then you take it out here and I want a lot more.
Yeah, but I think if you have friends who have kind of mid-grade enthusiast cars, you could go out on any fun road and hang with all your friends in the SI.
Yes,
You're not going to have to apologize for a thing. It is very impressive how well it does on a back road, how well it does being driven hard. But I stand by it. I think you could be that enthusiast that loves manual and all the things that we love, and you could use this as your daily commuter and it would never be frustrating. That's the thing. Sometimes manual transmissions get frustrating in traffic. This is just easy.
It is
doing
easy.
all of the commute traffic stuff, and then you know what? When you actually want to wring its neck, put it on a back road, it doesn't have to apologize, which is very impressive.
It is.
Usable, 4-real seats. Civic right now in general is a victory, but the SI I'm a huge fan of.
Yes.
I have to applaud Honda for giving us what we need, keeping the price to just over $30,000, and keeping the weight to 3,000 pounds. Those are victories.
That's really important. The weight and knowing you have such a light car, that's your secret weapon. That's what you're buying with the Civic Si. Nobody really thinks this is sub 3,000. Nobody thinks that.
True, yeah.
And you are. This is the 2025 Mazda 3 Turbo Premium Plus. That means it has 227 horsepower with 310 pound-feet of torque. But Mazda says on 93 octane, it will bump you to 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. It is the enthusiast car without being the top end. It's the middle ground without Mazda Speed actually still being around.
Let's be honest, there would be a more performance version of this if Mazda Speed existed, which would go against the Type R. So a step back from Type R is SI.
I'm glad you brought up the Type R because on that car, the engine makes 315 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque.
Fair.
So really, the Mazda 3 Turbo kind of sits in between the SI and the Type R.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the price does too. At almost $39,000 now.
Yes.
That is expensive. I mean, we're talking 32, 33 for the Civic Si.
Yes.
And even though it doesn't have the power this car has, power's not everything, but we're suddenly stepping up substantially in price.
What you're paying for here is the feel, the more luxurious feel.
That's exactly
That's the key thing to where your money went. There's a little more tech in here. The tech is a little friendlier, frankly. And there's things like, I hate to say it, there's a power driver's seat. It actually has full power, including lumbar. It is a powered seat.
But that adds weight.
It adds weight.
And
You're
that
right.
means this is 400 pounds heavier
It is.
than the Civic Si. And you feel it. Now, this car has all-wheel drive. And
Yes.
the engine is a full liter in displacement larger
Yes.
than the Civic Si. This is a 2.5 with 227 horsepower, although I'm not sure what we've calculated on 91 octane. So
Yes, somewhere
we'll
between
split the
227
difference.
and 250. So
It's got a
230,
lot.
240. The point is quite a bit more
Quite
in
a bit
horsepower
more.
and significantly more torque. And you're right, the same torque as the Type R, and the torque is what you really feel.
That's what you feel. And can you believe it? On 93, it makes even more torque than the Type R
Yeah, that's
for less
crazy.
money, but it's only 10 pound-feet. So we're splitting hairs. But on the Mazda 3 Turbo, you don't even get the option for a manual transmission.
Yes, you
Okay.
should be able to pass this guy.
I've got it floored.
confident.
I missed a shift.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, that's interesting because that brings us to the transmission. Now, most of the time, if you don't get the manual transmission Civic Si, the Civic that you're getting is a CVT. But this is a real automatic, which is almost standing alone in the marketplace of these kind of cars. It is an actual 6-speed traditional automatic. It is not a CVT of any kind, and that matters. It's not super fast. It's not like I've got paddles fast, but it is a good transmission.
This feels old school in a way, though, because of that. It's just a 6-speed. It does a decent job, and that's what you want. If you don't want the rev hang of a manual, even though we love manuals, this does completely solve that.
Yes.
Now, with the more power and the sport mode that this gives you, with this Mazda Jinbai Itai, the
look
gate,
at you.
the stance, the suspension changes that they have done to make this a better handling car, more natural handling. They've also got that, you remember, G vectoring control around a corner. You'll feel like the engine cut power a little bit. And if you know what the car is doing, it did just slightly to pitch the car onto its front tires, therefore to bite more through a corner. It's not you, it's the car. It's in some corners imperceptible, but in others, it's you kind of lifting to feather the throttle through a corner. It's the car doing that.
Yeah, it does that. It actually cuts torque to change body shift. It will tap the brakes. It does all of the stuff just to try to help you turn in a little bit more, just a little, tiny bit.
Yes, you feel that little bit of a pitch in there.
There you are. You're finding the edge of the tires. Look at you. Yep, there you are. There it is, right there. That is the edge of the tires.
215, 45, 18s.
Yeah.
That is very easily the edge. Just think, if you put the HPTs on this car.
Interesting point. Yes.
Now
Fair
we've
point.
got something. I like the Mazda 3. I wish Mazda Speed were still around.
Yes, I agree with
But
that.
I do like this car because it seems chuckable. And with the newfound power, it does make it nice. So the styling. It has been 4 or 5 years since this actually came out, and the styling still looks superb, so beautiful. You and I also talked about visibility in the Civic Si.
Which was excellent.
It's not as excellent in here.
It's not as excellent, yes.
With the hatchback,
True.
the HB configuration, but it's still not terrible. I mean, the back window is a little bit narrower. The visibility is not quite as good in here.
I would say it's actually
still
middle
decent.
ground between the Civic, which is a bubble, and a traditional sports car. It's like right in the middle.
Yes.
You have less than you do in the Civic, for sure. The Civic's great. And so obviously your blind spots are these big C-pillars, and that's been discussed before. But I think actually the place where you're going to feel it the most is sitting in the back. Sitting in the front, it actually doesn't get in your visibility as much as you might think.
That's true. All right, so in the interior, this is far more luxurious.
Absolutely, yes.
It better be for $5,000, $6,000 more.
That's what you're paying for sure.
This is now quite a nice place to be. The screen is not obtrusive. It doesn't dominate the driving experience, doesn't dominate the IP, which is nice. And part of that comfortability comes from the seats, power seat over here, as you identified. Of course, that makes the car heavier.
But both the seats are better than they are on the
They're
Civic.
quite excellent.
Yes.
I mean, this even has the air bladder at your loins to make distances a lot better. But you feel it's living up to its Mazda name. It feels more luxurious in here, and it certainly is.
90% of that price difference is actually perceived in the interior. I think that jump from almost 32 to around 38, 39, that is interior amenities and interior feel. And we went so far as to have piano black in the center console, which I don't like, but the world has not moved on from that yet, so it's still there. But we have buttons for the things you're going to use normally. We have a fantastic HVAC system. You have dual climate control, which did not exist in the Civic. It was singular, so dual climate control. Lots of things that are just luxury amenities that are not in the Civic. That's where the price went. As a result, where are you on what you need? That is the trade-off. And this also does look like a modern interior, whereas the Civic looks like anytime in the last 30 years. Yeah.
1998.
For sure, yes.
All right. I'm going to be thinking about value when I ride over here. You need to drive it.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about dynamics. Again, this is a nicer seat than that one.
It is.
Driver's seat is better. Other things in the interior that are available here, head-up display exists as well. So that's actually very nice. Of course, that's part of what you paid for as well. It's all about tech, and amenities on the interior are the big changes here that change that price. The other interior difference here, besides being a hatchback, is the back seats are a little more cramped here than they are in the Civic, which is kind of amazing how much room there is in the back of the Civic.
Takes all,
It
though.
does so great with the rear seat.
Cars
I'm
do
just
better.
amazed by that. So this, of course, is a front-wheel drive-based all-wheel drive system, and of course, I don't also have the ability to engine brake and the kind of things that I would do to control the car in the Civic with the manual. Oh, not hard. I mean, they're right there.
Where is it? 215.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that also is big about the dynamics here is Mazda went in the last generation 3 to this one. They went to a torsion beam rear here, away from multi-link. The Civic still has multi-link. And the reality is the Civic does handle better. But I kept driving this, also noting this fact. Mazda has definitely tuned this torsion beam rear end, which is a simpler rear end, for ride, because the ride here is excellent.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
superb.
Yes.
The handling is where it shows. The handling, when you chuck it in, it doesn't feel as tight and all together as the Civic does. The Civic has a scalpel feeling where we carved one arc. The back of this car is just the tiniest bit behind. And I attribute that to that torsion beam rear end, because the Civic it tracks so well and the dynamics are excellent. Now, of course, this is a soft car, as is the SI. It's actually softer than the SI. I'm not going to slight it for that. The kind of car this is, it needs to be soft, ride needs to matter, and that helps with the luxury feel here. But I do notice that when I duck this into a corner, the front end is sharper than the back.
That's a good way
of putting it. And that's what I'm
attributing
attributing that to, is the difference in the way the infrastructure of the car is, the actual chassis dynamics of it. The Civic has a better suspension system, and it is also tuned better on top of a better suspension system. But Mazda has killed it here with ride quality. And I am surprised, because sometimes torsion beam rear ruins the ride quality too. Somebody at Mazda cracked the code and figured out, okay, if I'm gonna have a torsion beam for cost savings and we're gonna actually tune this for the daily commute, they nailed it. It's really good. This can do as much or more than any average hatchback you've driven. Any normal front-wheel drive car, this has the extra security if you need it of all-wheel drive, and it is very reliable and predictable. It doesn't do anything weird. So many times we get into little front-wheel drive cars and they surprise you by being odd in the middle of a corner. You know what I mean?
Suddenly, well, that's bad.
Yeah.
The Civic Si never does that.
Never does that.
And you're right, because this is tuned for straight line commuting and maybe high-speed driving, the nice tour, the seats need more support. I'm being thrown around here. I'm smiling because you're chucking in the car into a corner. I'm going, all right, I'm going to slide up my seat now.
We'll be just fine.
Clearly.
I actually like these seats. I think this is
I like these seats.
fantastic commuting place.
It's clearly aimed at more sporty driving.
Absolutely. I do agree with that.
Sure.
These are more adjustable, but they are also softer and more luxurious seats.
I mean, they're luxurious.
Yes.
I'm sliding around.
Sure, I do agree with that.
Chuck it in.
You're right. Just chuck it in.
Maybe I'll end up in the ditch.
The reality is, I can't slight this because you're getting a lot for your money. This is one of those cars you're going to climb in it at $38K, and also keep in mind, this is loaded. They loaded this out.
It is.
I don't think you can get a more expensive Mazda 3 right now than this one.
No.
They gave us everything. So that means you could go into your local dealer and walk out for less than this and still feel every bit as luxurious as this is with the turbo all-wheel drive. So I think you're going to be very pleased with the feel. I think you're going to be very pleased with the amenities and the luxury of this. I think will surprise you for the money. If you start to push it, the dynamics aren't with the Civic, but I come back to the average person isn't driving roads like this. And in a commute situation, you're going to appreciate this power very much.
I still maintain this is the car between the SI and the Type R.
To some degree it is. I agree.
Completely sits in the middle. And it's tough because I want to choose.
Yeah,
but you're describing two different scenarios that one over the other. You could still commute just fine in the Civic Si.
Of course you could. This is a luxury car for not a luxury car price. I mean, it really does feel that way.
It does.
And the Civic does not, but the Civic is giving you a lot more in dynamics. So you have to kind of debate, what kind of driver are you? I think I might be a Civic driver.
I think I'm a Civic driver, but you know what? 4 or 5 years on, this car doesn't feel old.
They could have
It
just
still
released
feels-
this. We'd be fine with it.
Correct. It
You're
still
absolutely
feels
right. That's
fresh
great.
in that sense, which is a big high mark for Mazda.
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Griot's Garage. Use the code DRIVER10 to save on your order.
Neither of these cars really are what we want them to be, but the price is so excellent. And that's what it comes down to. For the price, that's where these cars live all day long. That is the
Agreed.
sweet
Yeah.
spot for both of these. Now I'm having trouble deciding.
The thing is, this is that part of the market where you're just buying one car. This is the
Yes,
car you're going
yes.
to commute in. It's a car you're going to use every single day. It's going to have to do all the errands of your life. But if you find yourself on a back road, you don't want to be disappointed.
sure.
Or if you are a person who loves to drive, you want to feel like this car is still satisfying. That is exactly where these cars live, and they do it well. I think it really comes down to how much do you want to lean commute versus fun. Because if what you're really going to do is find yourself very rarely on a road like we use, then honestly, I don't know that you're going to benefit from what the Civic Si does so well. Even though it is a great manual for traffic, I think the benefits of the chassis are kind of lost on you if you aren't on a fun road regularly. And at that point, you're going to appreciate being in the Mazda with the better seats, the better amenities,
Good point.
all-wheel drive, no matter what your weather is. I think you're going to appreciate that. I so like manual, especially when it's easy to drive and you could commute in. A manual for commuting is not that common. A manual I could commute
No.
great back seat space. We're trees and there's great back seat space in the Civic Si. A lightweight four-door with wheel space, I have to go Civic Si personally for those reasons, but I know that I'm not typical in that regard. I think a lot of people would be much happier here because they're doing more commuting, they rarely are on a back road, and the back seat's big enough.
And I also see your point. Todd talks a lot about using all of the car and using all of the engine. The Civic Si is a car that you have to drive flat to the floor,
Yes.
right, at all times
all the time, yes.
to extract all the power. I think what it comes down to is we have to measure the length of your commute. I think if you're
okay. All
0 to 24 miles,
Whoa, 24 whole miles, got it, okay.
then Civic Si might be for you. If you're beyond 24, 25 miles, well, then you might consider the Mazda 3. And it really just depends. How long, what's the pain level? How long do you want to be stuck in traffic? And then at what point into your commute? Is it 18 minutes in, you'll wish for the automatic and think,
That's fair.
What am I doing?
If it's stop and go, it may be less than 18 minutes. I will say the flip side though is you've got a 30-mile commute, but it's all windy 2-lane back roads.
Civic Si.
Civic Si. So it's actually, this is a geographical comparison. Who knew?
When you're shopping, go to Autotempest.com/everyday because Autotempest has both of these cars. You can find many variants, and you remember, we first drove these 4 or 5 years ago, so you have a range of price options, a range of colors. Autotempest.com/everyday. They've got new cars, used cars. You can find a price comparison, so you can find out what they're selling for.
Yes.
And let us know what you got.
Paul's lost in joystick land because that's what the Honda Civic provides for you is joystick land. It is quite satisfying.
It's so satisfying.
It is satisfying to use the joysticks to change the HVAC. I have
like
to
it
admit,
so
it's very,
much.
very good. Yes.